starting this, I have to really take my own advice because I'm like, again, man, I need a tent. I need a branded car. What influencers do I get? And, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, okay, whoa, slow your roll. Take your own advice. Own your own AO first, and then, maybe start expanding. And so, yeah, like, I get it. But it's tough though, right? Because you can see, it's like being a visionary. You can see the future. Like, I see it. Why can't I already be in it?
Yeah, it is the hardest thing, right? Like you said, seeing the future is hard because you're not there yet. You can see it, but you're not there yet. And you might know what it takes to bridge that gap, but probably through the knowledge of bridging that gap, you're like, that's going to be really, really hard. Is that much of it? That's not much of a change for you, right?
My name is Kerry Kite. I used to load bombs in the Air Force, and now I'm a writer, a filmmaker, and an entrepreneur. Through using the post 9/11 GI Bill to go to college, working hourly jobs to pay the bills, and freelancing my way into a career, I've studied what it takes to successfully transition from service to civilian, and that study has become a conversation. On this podcast, I speak to other veterans, successful artists and entrepreneurs about their transition, what they did well, where they failed, what they learned, and most importantly, how they applied their skills.
Episode 153 features returning guest and my friend Dan Horgan, the founder of Arrow and Honor Co. Dan is a serial marketer, entrepreneur, and prolific LinkedIn poster.
Welcome. This is Veteran Made.
Our merch store is live at store.veteranmadeproductions.com. Grab hats, t-shirts, and hoodies in both performance and tri-blend cotton fabrics. Use code VM-5OFF for 5% off your purchase. Veteran Made is also sponsored by GoPills, a military-grade nootropic that contributes to brain health over time. Use code VM15 at checkout for 15% off. I get my collagen protein from Bubs Naturals, where you can use code VETERANMADE, all one word, at checkout for 20% off your order. We're also proud to partner with True Made Foods, which makes condiments free from added sugar and sweetened with real foods. Use code VET at checkout for 15% off. We love socks in this house. I get my wife new socks every Christmas. More importantly, we love American-grown and made socks. Use code VETERANMADE15 at rucksocks.com for 15% off. And lastly, I end my day with Rack Out from Bravo Actual to maintain quality sleep, resulting in a well-rested body and mind. Use code VETERANMADE with a space between the words at checkout for 15% off your order. Enjoy the episode. Columbus, Ohio.
Sounds boring.
It's great, dude.
Is it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You gotta get
always. Are you from there or what? Or
we born and raised in San Diego, but visited Columbus. I don't know, a couple times a year as a kid because my dad's side of the family is from here.
Yeah.
And then went to high school here, enlisted out of here.
Okay.
The college at Ohio State here. And then went to Orlando and LA and New York and Richmond. And then now, we moved back to Columbus, March of last year. So
really? Okay.
Yeah. It's home, man. We've got my mother-in-law's right down the street, my sisters-in-law and their boyfriend and husband, my brother.
Support system.
Yeah. It's great. Yeah. Cousins, aunts, uncles. We got another baby here coming in a month. So, as of this airing last week,
right?
I guess we're living in the future, man. Yeah. But yeah, Dan Horgan, welcome back to Veteran Made, brother.
Thanks, man. It's always good to be back, and I'm so excited to. Right. I don't think I ever really talk about myself. Like when you hit me up, I think every time, if I talk to anybody, I'm usually doing something, right? And I'm usually talking about something else. Not anymore, man. I'm talking about myself.
Let's do it, dude. Let's jump in. We text all the time. We talk a lot. Obviously follow each other on social and see stuff. So I see that you've been moving and shaking and trying some jobs, working on some jobs, but now you've created Arrow and Honor Company. So
right.
Dude, let's talk about it. What you got going on?
Yeah. So, right. I think we talked before. So I got into archery back in 2020. Yeah. Right. It's one of those stories, right? So Evan, Black Rifle Coffee, wanted to create the Veteran Adaptive Shoot. I literally drove from San Antonio to Salt Lake with a bunch of equipment and bows and stuff that we had for the first one we were doing. Right. So that's a 20-hour trip from San Antonio to Salt Lake. Do it in 2 legs. So I'm on my last 10-hour leg, and I get to the parking lot there, right, of the Black Rifle Salt Lake office, and the Isaacs, if people follow along with archery, there's Isaac and his son Junior, and literally they're like, all right, let's dial your bow in. First time I picked up a bow. Like, we pulled it out of the back of the truck, and I'm dialing it in, and we do the veteran adaptive athlete shoot. So 2020, and when I say I haven't put a bow down, I don't fletch my own arrows, man. Like, I could tell you parts of the bow, right? And I know all this stuff, and I've shot, and I did all this. Anyway, so that story being, so where am I going? I got into it. Like, I went to every Total Archery Challenge, right? So Black Rifle was the subtitle sponsor for the Total Archery Challenge events, and then became the title sponsor. And then we did the veteran adaptive athlete shoots. And then just locally here, guys like Jason Tabansky, right? Paralympic gold medalist. Now Jason lives here in San Antonio, right? And made friends with Jason and go and shoot. And so the story ends up really, right? Trust me, I can ramble. Cam knows that, right?
It's cool, dude. Ramble on. You're here.
I'm at Oklahoma Total Archery Challenge, right, this year. So that was April 2025, right? And so Sean's the owner of TAC, and Sean and I are sitting there talking, and like I think he had like 20, don't quote me. I think he had like 2,800 people. So you have 2,800 people over 3 days, right? And I'm with my wife, and Bethany and my wife, she started shooting as well. And so you're just seeing all these people, and she's just like, look at all these dudes and like people, right? And everyone's staring at each other, looking at their equipment. And she's just like what widget? What do we create? And I was like, I don't know. Like, I'm not, I can't build the release. Like, I don't know. And I was just like, so then it just comes, and I was just like, it's the community, and it's what I need and wanted to do. And so, not that it was born there, but it was just like, I'm also one of those dudes, I don't do like a vision board, and not that I knock that, but like, and I know leaders and entrepreneur people will say, hey, write your goals and visions down. And that's when I say it was born. I looked at Bethany and I said, we're going to create something, and I'm going to be a vendor at like 4 TACs, right? Like, I'm going to go, and not just Dan go shoot. Like, I'm going to have a 10x10 tent, and we're making this. And Arrow and Honor Co. came up with this logo with, with the, what is it, the M1, the helmet, right, from World War II, and skulls. Everyone likes skulls, especially in the veteran community. So it's kind of funny. And so, and then on the back of the shirt, like, just for example, kind of the tagline to really put a lot of effort into it: draw, aim, heal, right? So draw, aim, and heal. And that's the premise is really, the healing. I mean, again, I'm not a psychologist or a therapist, but I've gone to therapy, and I know how I feel when I'm in the woods, and I know when I'm doing this stuff. And so it'll be niche, right? But it's something that's like I am passionate about, and it's just like, all right, let's just do this.
I love the story because those of us that work in marketing, right, and we sell other people's widgets, right? Whether we're on the agency side or the production company side, working for the client as a vendor, or whether we're in-house, at a client that has their own shop like Black Rifle, right? You're constantly selling other people's stuff, whether it's t-shirts or gear or merch or coffee or mugs or like whatever it is, right? And it's funny because as marketers, as creative people, as advertising people, as storytellers, we're constantly thinking about how to sell other people's stuff, right? And then there are successful people who, like my buddy Ryan that I used to work for at Circus Maximus, like he started his own beer brand, right? He's like, Dad Strength Beer, because I was mixing athletic brew with IPAs. And then he's like, oh, nobody's doing that. Only a couple people are doing it, rather. Like, how do I go out and compete in that marketplace? And it's like, okay, great. But then you're thinking, all right, I don't know enough about the actual bow system itself or the accessories that go along with it. I'm interested enough because I use them and I'm here a part of this community. Oh, right. Community. That's what I build. That's what Dan Horgan has built at every one of his stops as a marketer. Right. And it's like, okay, cool. There's my product. So how do I go build it? Yep. I love it.
Yeah. I mean, and it's the thing, like, and I make fun. It's not me even make fun of. It's really not. I mean, I'm not going to be the next 9 line apparel, right? I'm not going to be the next grunt style.
Right.
Or I'm not even going to be the next Black Rifle, even though I would tell you when I say the next Black Rifle, obviously my intimate connection with those guys
Sure.
is I think there's an ad and Evan says on one of them that he wanted to I think this was an older one, but it was like, Black Rifle, he wanted to make the most veteran centric company in America.
Mm-hmm.
And not that I didn't steal that, but I'm like, yes, that's what Arrow and Honor Co. I want to be the most veteran centric company, especially for archery, right? For archery, veteran centric company. Yeah.
Well, we all steal, quote unquote, from people that we've worked with and worked for.
Yeah.
I don't think Evan is like, I want to be the only veteran centric company,
Right.
right? I want to be the most veteran centric company.
Yeah.
With the vision of inspiring other small business owners and entrepreneurs to build more around, through, and with this community. Black Rifle takes a lot of shit because they've had the corner on the market for a very long time. And now other companies have built off of their template, whether directly or whether indirectly, or just getting into the space. And so, they can handle it, right? Like they're big boys. They built a company and went public, and they can take the flack that they need to take. But the idea that you shouldn't then build a company that's veteran centric to try to compete at that level, it's absurd to think that that's not something you should do.
Yeah, no, I know. And then even go back to what you were saying for the marketing, it's just as in like selling someone else's stuff. Like, again, for them, like waking up every morning, right? I was always trying to sell coffee, right? That was the whole thing. Just trying to sell a bag of coffee today, dude. Yeah. Right. But every day. And then for the nonprofits, right? So I did some stuff with some nonprofits these last couple of years, and same thing, right? Like donate, which is the same thing as selling, right? And so marketing. And that's why, like, when I first started off saying I haven't ever really talked about myself, because I would tell you, so that's what I was doing this morning. So while I know like email campaigns and stuff, like I'm not a MailChimp expert. And I can tell you right now, for Arrow and Honor Co., I was on there this morning. I won't cuss because I couldn't freaking figure out the contact list. I had built it and I have like 100 emails in there, but it was only registering like 10. And it's like, where's the other 80? And it's showing me. And I was getting so mad because it's like trying to sell some t-shirts today, but not only selling t-shirts, that's the thing too, right? It's not just selling t-shirts. Like, again, I want the t-shirts because I want people, it's that awareness. When we talk about marketing, right, is people even listen to this, Carrie, right, is like brand awareness, right? We know brand awareness. If we talk like the marketing funnel, that's the top. And so it's just even like getting emails out. Like I was just so frustrated because I don't have a team, right? It's just me. And while I know that section because I'm supposed to, and I do, I just don't know that platform that intimately. And I was just like,
dude,
bro.
Dude, you're hitting on the hardest part about being an entrepreneur, especially when you've worked for other organizations and you had their resources to work with, right? There was a team, right?
Yeah.
Like when you're an entrepreneur, my wife and I co-own our business and it's just us. Neither one of us are email marketers. Neither one of us are social media marketers. Neither one of us are insert whatever, but we've always had teams of people that do that. And so we can oversee that. We can produce that. We can creative direct that. But now we're the ones who have to do it. And it is the hardest part. Like when people say entrepreneurship is a grind, like that's what they mean. It's like you're starting something from scratch with no resources. It's just you and the flashlight you brought with you. It's like, dude, where am I right now?
No, really. It's events, right? So events fell under me, right? And that's a part of marketing events. And so same thing, I'm going to use, and I'll name drop too, right? I'm talking about myself. So Strike Visuals did all of our tent and, feather flags and tablecloths back in the day. And so got a hold of, my old contact there. Right. And I'll be brutal, right? I mean, that's about $2,000 just for a tent, a flag, and a tablecloth. Now they're a lifetime guarantee and they're doing me right because they'll design it and I'm giving them input. And I'm sure like any owner, they're like, you're
the client now. You're the client giving notes, dog.
And I went, if the guy Matt ever listened to this too, right? He sent the engineers or the designers sent something, and I was like, I don't know, like I don't want to go there. Like maybe this, like I know I said this, but that's not turning out how I want. But anyway, but like that's $2,000. I'm not wealthy, right?
Yeah.
My Bethany's still in the Air Force, right? So my wife's a E8, right? So she's making money. I get it. I just got riffed on the other week for my full-time gig that I had. And so you're like, yeah, but you look at that just aspect of it from being the money aspect of it to like doing every little single thing. And when you hear all these stories, right? So the BRCC story, and same thing with like Grunt Style, right? When Dan created that back in the day, like these guys did it from the trunks of their cars and their garages for real. And like I would tell you, I just even to talk about the company, I chose not to, like, so I'm not shipping it out of my garage because I thought of that, right? But I was like, nope, like I'm not going to have the time. Like you can't hold a full-time job and the family, and like you can, but then you hear about that grind, and I was like, nope. And so actually, a guy Brian, who's an ex-BRCC guy as well, started his own gig, Ritual Prints, out there in Salt Lake, and so Brian's the one who's printing and shipping for me. So yeah.
That's the thing about the resources too, that like we it's easy for us to think about the ones that we don't have, right? But then we think about the relationships we built through the networks that we built. Those are the resources that we do have to be like, hey, Brian, I need help with this thing. Here's the vision, here's the product, here are the designs, and I need you to handle this. How can we work together, right?
Yeah, well, and I'm paying Brian, but again, I would tell you, like, I make jokes, and I was like, hey, thanks for being my business partner.
Right.
He's not. I mean, I'm a client of his. He's doing it, and Brian, God bless his soul, right? I mean, when I text him, like, I know he has other shirts and things he's producing, but like even with the website design, like I didn't do that. Again, another ex BRCC or former, I'd say an ex, just former BRCC. Lee helped me with that, and so she designed it. But Brian, like we got on a call, and I thought it was gonna be like a 30-minute call where we were just gonna integrate his shipping stuff, right? And you get into the weeds, like the shipping stuff with the site and how it got ordered. We were on that call for more than an hour.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. And when you jokingly say like, thanks for being my business partner. I mean, that's the best way to look at, you've heard me talk about it, right? Like networks are not plots on a graph. Networks are other human beings, right? These relationships that we've built with other humans, right? Mind to mind, heart to heart. And so I always look at my clients as partners and my vendors as partners, right? Like you have to do that, like the human centric approach. And then the deeper that relationship goes, then the better you're able to work together, the more you're able to give them and the more you're able to receive from them as well. Because I'm sure Brian hops on calls all the time with other clients that are super short because they're just to the point and like, all right, I've got what you need. You need this. Let's do it. Okay, move on.
Right.
Well, when he works with Dan, it's like, well, this is a relationship.
It really is. And I would tell you, it's funny. And like, he would tell you, like probably almost every other text too. I'm like, hey, invoice me. Like like you're going to, like, I'm going to pay you. Like, I don't, especially with shirts, right? Like, and he's just not making everything for free, but by any means. But like, I feel like that though, because that's even early relationships back in like a BRCC day. While we were like the big kids, like I remember like, so Josh Smith, Montana Knife Company.
Yeah.
I can remember when Josh was just starting and he would give us knives, right? Because it was that word of mouth and it was that network to build into it. Again, marketing. So eventually, like 3 years later, I remember I was like, hey, like we grew exponentially. I was like, I'll buy knives. Like we will pay for the knives.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. That's the reciprocal nature of those relationships with different people and different organizations at different stages.
Oh yeah. And now you look at Montana Knife Company and look where he's going. I mean, getting a grant from the state and helping and building a 50,000 square foot facility in Montana. Yeah. Awesome.
Huge.
Yeah.
Huge. So so you mentioned, so community is the product, right? T-shirts are the, so what are you building and how are you building it?
Yeah. So it is the typical entrepreneur, maybe the plane's in the air and I'm building it. So when I say that, like when I think about it, like I need to do events. I'm not going to be a competitor like Deshaun. Like I'm not going to do 3D events. I might host like one, like how again BRCC we did the veteran adaptive shoot. So that community is when I want to start building it. First, it's just going to be, I was calling like the shirts like your armor. So it's now it's like it's equipping. Think about basic training, even right? Like, God, you're making my brain snap. You go right, you get off the bus and everything, but your initial stuff is getting your uniform, right? And so I think that's where the t-shirts and even like I'll do hats. So Brian's going to do a hat for me. I'm a huge multicam fan, so I'm going to do like this the Richardson Tropic, but it'll have like draw, aim, heal. But anyway, so getting your initial clothing issue, so now like you're wearing that, and now that you're wearing it, it's getting, and again, veterans in archery, and the people could say, well, what about first responders, right? I mean, because I was a cop, and I get that, and I would, and we're all welcome, right? I get it, but like it really is for veterans. Just I don't even know how to tackle a suicide epidemic, right? I've had a friend in my life, former TAC-P, commit suicide. So like I've been there, right? So I know it, but I just I don't know how to tackle it. And so that's why the community took care to go back. Like shirts are a way first to just say, hey, like if someone saw you wearing it, right? And this is what it represents. And it represents just that though, is get a bow in your hand, start slinging some arrows just so you can feel more at peace. Right. And so I want to host, right. I'd love to host, an event, as in like put one on myself. I mean, I did that. That's gonna be money. That I would tell you, actually, it's not even money that doesn't even scare me, but that it hampers me. It's really finding the space. So you need space, right? I would probably even say I'd probably need a minimum of 50 acres, someone who has land, and then it's got to be close, right? If people fly in, it can't be 3 hours from the nearest airport. It needs to be closer to do all that. So those logistics I need, right, to be able to hammer that in. But then to be a vendor, right? So I want to go to archery events because not as a vendor, yeah, so I call it the ShamWow, right? I'm selling my ShamWow towel. Like I'm going to be selling, right? But it goes more as like that you're present.
Yeah.
Right. And it's what it was. I mean, again, I remember, right, again, back in the day, I know I'm reliving the old stories, but it's just, when people would see you at an event and then you're wearing the merch and it's just that feeling, right? And so all these total archery challenges, and there's other 3D events that I would love to go to, especially even little local ones, right? I know I can't start out huge, but if there's a local event and they have maybe some vendors, that's why, again, one of my first purchases is going to be my event setup, my tent, my feather flag, and my tablecloth, is to be able to go to those, right? To be there to tell the story. But telling the story is just even like the military. I mean, what you did and Cam, right, with the team red, white, and blue, is to be able to tell a story of like, hey man, these are veterans, people are struggling, like support, because we don't have, right? And I said we don't have Afghanistan. You don't have that GWAT like that, like it's died down, I guess. So I don't know how you want to put it. So you can't lose that. There's still a military out there, and there's still people deployed.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
I mean, it's not the huge numbers that we had, back in the day, but there's still people deployed. And so what does that look like? To do collabs, actually. So I'm gonna do a collab with the Purple Heart organization that I used to work with, Warrior Bonfire. I did a design that's a Purple Heart design. And I'll do a limited run because I'm coughing up the money, but then I'm going to donate money back to them. But again, it's just that awareness to say, hey, like there's people that got injured in combat and earned a Purple Heart, which, no one really wants. Let's not forget about these things. Yeah.
Yeah. What I love about t-shirts too is like everybody kind of jokes, right? Like we don't need another coffee company. We don't need another podcast. We don't need another t-shirt company in the community. But I think why t-shirts, merch in general and t-shirts in particular are so important to us is like what you were describing. Like you were talking about it as armor, but it goes on your skin, right? Like it's skin to skin contact, right? Like it's on your person. And like you've got the aim, draw, aim, heal, right? Like it's the logo's on your heart, right? You know what I mean? So it's like Well, yeah, that part's on the back, right? It's like it covers you, right? And it's something you can wear and that you can show externally, like, hey, I'm interested in this thing. I support this thing. This is a part of like how I identify, right? To use weird vernacular from these days, but it's also like, no, it's on my person, it's on my skin, and this logo is on my heart, you know?
Yeah, it really does. And that's the thing though, and that's why designs, right? Right now I have 4 designs on the website, and there's one I call it red, white, and bow, and it's a flag and it's got a bow in it. Man, I thought that was going to crush. That's the least performing right now, right? Yeah. Gorilla in space, which is like a gorilla in a spacesuit, like a Mars kind of theme. Yeah, that one's doing well. But I have more. Like I again, when I did this. Again, so I know we talked about you had Gary, right? So you had Gary, I know I had to have designs already in the bank, and so I probably have about another 4 to 5 good ones. All right, some need some tweaking, but 4 to 5 good ones I can launch. But again, it's my money I'm putting up to pay Brian to print them, right? Have that, and that money there, and to be able to make that money back. So I just can't shell out 10 grand and have 10 grand worth of shirts sitting in Brian's, warehouse.
Right. And as you're talking about building community and you're talking about these events, right? Like starting local is how you build community, right? Like if you try to start nationally, you try to start at scale, like that is probably not going to work. None of the organizations that you've mentioned here started that way. It always starts very small, very local, serving the people, giving the people what they want that are right around you, testing the market at a smaller scale, at a local level, and then scaling up. So I think like doing local events makes a ton of sense. Sponsoring local events, being a vendor at local events, building your brand awareness from the ground up rather than saying, hey, look at this big national, veteran archery brand. It's like, nope, start small and build it.
I know. And so I would tell you, I have to actually, here's a plug for Gary. I think Gary designed this pen.
Nice.
If people see it, Gary sees this. Yeah, it's that coffee. Anyway, it's just one of my favorites that I have. So I have to take my own advice, and this is, I know you do clips. If anyone, when you're watching this clip, taking my own advice was just that though. I watched the BRCC success, right? That when they went public, what was that? It took about 8 years. I think it was, right? Don't quote me, but it was about 8 years, right? So about 8 years ago public. Everybody wants that instant success. And I'm always the one going, whoa, it took them 8 years to get there and a huge team, right? And a budget. Starting this, I have to really take my own advice because I'm like, again, I'm like, man, I need a tent. I need a branded car. What influencers do I get? And, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, okay, whoa, slow your roll.
Yeah.
Take your own advice. Just what you said. You're gonna have to start here, and that's what I won't mention them. So when I left Black Rifle, I left to go for this military tribute beer company, and I think that's what that CEO wanted. Is he wanted a lot of the Black Rifle magic like right away, and I was very adamant that it's not, and changing things, and so literally, like I've said it, and then I literally have to make sure that I take my own medicine and do that, because one of the things is like even what you were saying too is it's like controlling, and I've said this, it's like controlling your own area of operations, your own AO. Mm-hmm. Own your own AO first, and then maybe start expanding. And so like I get it, but it's tough though, right? Because you can see, it's like being a visionary. You can see the future. Like I see it. Why can't I already be in it?
It is the hardest thing, right? It's like I was gonna make the joke of like, start by going on small podcasts like mine, right? Like I've been doing it for 4 years, and I'm only just now starting to see legitimate growth.
Right. Yeah.
For 4, and weirdly enough, now is the most tempting time to quit or to be like, it's like it hasn't grown as fast as I wanted to. Like when I was grinding for 4 years and nobody was listening, like you and 6 other people were listening weekly, it was like, fuck it, I'm gonna do this. Like I'm gonna crush it. And now, it's like 18,000 downloads a month. It's like, oh man, I'm not growing fast enough. But it's like, whoa, look back. Like that's good. You're starting to see the growth that you really want to see. And weirdly enough, that's the most tempting time to either totally pivot or to quit. But you got to keep going through that.
Right, yeah.
And like you said, seeing the future is hard because you're not there yet. You can
Yeah.
see it, but you're not there yet, and you might know what it takes to bridge that gap, but probably through the knowledge of bridging that gap, you're like, that's going to be really, really hard.
Yeah, it is. I mean, so there's and again, name dropping just because I can nowadays. Not that I couldn't before, but Michael. So Michael Clemmer, he does Aerial Reef Supply Coffee, right?
Yeah.
He did a post and he was talking about that, and then I made a comment, and I didn't again mention anything, but I was like, yeah, I remember back in the day, we were spending like $3 million on Facebook ads.
Yeah.
Right. But back in that day, there was like, and again, don't quote me, but I think it was like 3X.
Yeah.
I mean, that's good. Like that's roulette, right? Like if I'm putting, 3X in, like that's not bad. But who has $3 million?
I certainly don't.
Oh,
Yeah.
I certainly don't. I would have sold more than 50 shirts in this last week if I could probably put $3 million in some Facebook ads, right? And so it is. But again, you have to take your own medicine when you know these things, and I know these things, right? I watched it, and literally, it's funny because like even getting frustrated, like I said this morning, over the email stuff. I'm just like, man, I can remember like some mess ups, and it's just like, but that's when I always have to go back. Evan used to tell me like, no one's dying, you're not getting shot
Yep.
at.
Yep.
Again, we're trying to sell coffee, but just relax, dude.
Yep. I love that.
And that's how I was this morning, sitting on my couch with my laptop in my lap, just trying to figure out the stupid contacts and to make them import. And I was just like,
yeah. And it feels like you're burning so much time, and you are, but there is value in going through that yourself and understanding before you're able to pass it off to your email marketer, your email marketing specialist, and say, hey, can you figure this thing out and knock it out?
Yeah.
And you're just project managing, but now you actually have to task manage and task execute. And you're like, man, this is really frustrating. But then if you can step back and see the value in doing that, and understanding how that works, then you can scale it from there.
Yeah, and it's like impressions on social media, same thing. Like I've told, especially on the nonprofit side, I've told people like, hey, if we get 500 impressions, like here's a picture of what 500 people look like in an audience.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's a big, right? And I go to a big church here in San Antonio, and like I think every service is like 1,500 people. So even if you get say 1,500 impressions, you're like, when you look at some others, and it's not 100,000s, but like 1,500 people, you're filling up a church.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Right. If you're comparing yourself to larger brands that have been around for longer, like that's just a recipe for disaster, because you're not them. You don't have that 8 years of tail. Like you have to look at it in the context of what your budget is, right? Like what your revenue is, like what your targets are immediately. So what you say, you can see the future. Paint the picture of the future for us.
Yeah. It's funny. Yeah, I'd love to be at least at a minimum the subtitle sponsor for a Total Archery Challenge.
Yeah.
So if people aren't familiar, Total Archery Challenge is a 3D archery event. I don't hold any stock or spirit into it. Sean DeGray started it. I think it's been, Sean said, about 14 years now. They go to 10 to 14 different states. Again, Yeti used to be like the title sponsor, right? BRCC took it over. Now it's like Jacklink. So what's that future look like? Man, I'd love to at least at minimum be like the subtitle sponsor.
Yeah.
For something like that. Why? Is because that community walking around isn't all just veteran. I mean, it's archery people just in general, but that community that is your NASCAR fans. They are your veterans. Right? They're your hunters and people who shoot rifles, but also shoot bows. I mean, it's just, that's the community coming from my military days that, sets me off. When I talk about my healing, it's going out for a walk. I did a LinkedIn post the other day and I was talking about that, like, feeling crappy and blah, but then like going out and like breaking a sweat and then being on a little bit of a trails at Camp Bullis here in Texas. And like, you immediately feel better. Like, no joke. It's not even a lie. It wasn't a stunt or anything. Like I was feeling just bleh, right. And then walking, I'm on a trail. I'm like sweating, hot, sun's on me. Like I see I love like these bushes that we have here in Texas. They're like the really pointy ones and just how they look. And like, I'm happy. And I was like, hell, I'm gonna take a selfie. Like, this is something, right? So that future is it to be that. But why? Because once you're at that level, like I know, um, emulating, I would tell you, like, so John Dudley has a community called Knock On, right? So John started the company Knock On based off of, like he's a phenomenal archer, right? I'm not a phenomenal archer, but I'm a phenomenal veteran who's an archery enthusiast. And so it's just to be able to create that, because it's not even about John, right, per se. It's the people that just love like Knock On and archery and then that vibe. And so it really is that, because people come like for it and not like for him. It's hard to explain, because I think sometimes when you say it, like, I don't want people to see me. Like, I've always been behind the camera type of scenario, right? And so it's literally just, I would tell you, and again, it's a little bit of a BRCC envy. I want to be at an airport and I want to see someone in my t-shirt, and then maybe even see me or something and not know, right? Because again, it's not me, but and see the same t-shirt or a different t-shirt, but Arrow and Honor Co. and be like, dude, right?
Yeah.
Because I've had that feeling. I've been in the airport, man. I've been in the airports, and this is why. I've been in the airports wearing like a BRCC shirt, and people would come up and be like, I love your coffee. You can buy this shirt. So they would tell me I love your coffee. How do you know, even like, what do you mean my coffee? Right? Like, anyone can wear that shirt. Yeah. You're wearing a Nike or an Under Armour shirt, huge brands. No one comes up to you and says, man, I love your shoes.
Right.
I had multiple people all the time. Like when we would travel through the airports and I would travel around, love your coffee, love, and I'd be like, cool. I go, and then that was the conversations. And that's where do I see the future? It's those conversations, right?
Yeah. It's the physical manifestation of the community, right?
Yeah.
It represents something more than just the brand or the fabric or the widget, like the thing, right? It is like, oh no, that's representative of something different and bigger than just an apparel company.
It is, because that would be always my response is actually I would go, well, actually I work there. And they'd be like, oh, then they would sound surprised. But I was like, well, your comment again, literally was love your club. And I was like, I work there. And they'd be like, oh, right. And then working how I worked and who I knew, like you build into it. And it was such nice, but that's even then the veteran aspect of it. Did you serve? Oh, for them or for me? Yes, I did. Oh, what? Right. And then you never know. Just because, even though, right, so there's my beret back there, right? So even the TAC-P community's small. I mean, it's not huge, but you never know if you run into somebody, and things like that. And then older folks, right? As we I say older folks, I'm older. Like, I joined the Air Force in 91, right? And so we talk about Desert Storm and the first invasions and stuff. That was then. Right. And then going to Afghanistan. Well, so World War II, right? I mean, what are we at, the 81st anniversary, right? We just hit that. And you're like, we don't live forever. And so like that, there's people, right? We're going to circle of life, right? Not trying to be like, but Vietnam, right? I mean, that's coming, and God, it's just, and then eventually, like, we get into the GY as we all get older, like, right, 20 some more years, I'll be in my 70s. And people are going to be like, oh, how was Afghanistan? Right. And then be able to talk about, hell, now, I mean, I retired, in 2016, right? This is when I stopped, right? So my last
almost 10 years ago.
Yeah. So my last control, actually, it was probably 2015. I didn't control, really much, because I ended up doing some first cert kind of duty stuff. But anyway, yeah. So it's just like you've been out of that for a hot minute, but the stories, because like people aren't at war anymore, right? Okay, I didn't mean to say that, right? I don't want to send anybody off. Conflicts and stuff going on, but like what we had. So I think those stories, and Cam talks about it.
Yeah. Well, I think
stories.
Yeah, I mean, I think what you're speaking to is the World War II generation came home, and as entrepreneurs, they built brick and mortars, right? Or they went and worked in warehouses, and they built kind of like Main Street stuff. And we live in a digital economy now, right? Where you can still build physical things, right? Whether it's bags of coffee,
which
or
I would
whether
love
it's
to have a store.
t-shirts,
Actually, we talk about it.
but
Like, I'd love to have a
yeah. And so it's like what you're describing though is the generational understanding of service in this country. And there is some overlap, right? Like in the Air Force, I served with people who served in Desert Storm because I joined in, 2006, right?
Yeah.
And so that was like, 16, 15, 16, 17 years before, right? And so there was that overlap, but now the guys that are going in are not serving with people who served then. They're serving with people who served in the early days of the GWAT. And then whatever the next war is, like that overlapping nature of the generational approach to understanding not just service, but who served, who they are and who they represent. I think that's one thing that BRCC has done a great job of, is honoring all those previous generations and saying like, hey, these are previous generations of people that experience different kinds of life, different kinds of war, but we are all a part of this same community. And so as the most previous generation passes away, like they're passing on knowledge, they're passing on experience, they're passing on contribution, they're passing on these relationships as we iterate forward as a veteran community that is getting smaller statistically, right? Like less people, 3% served in the revolution, 1% served now, right? And so the hard numbers might be larger, but the percentage is smaller, right? As the population of the country grows, and culturally we lose a real good understanding, because each conflict, each war has its own identity that's shaped by the media, shaped by academia, shaped by the suits in Washington. And the rest of us are like, nope, we were there. This is who we are. This is what we represent. This is what we like. This is where we agree. This is where we disagree. And fucking t-shirts can actually help us tell that story.
Yeah, no, I know. And well, it's even like for the helmet for that. My kids and I just watched. I mean, I watched them, but Band of Brothers.
Mm-hmm.
But I have a 12-year-old, right, and he hasn't seen Band of Brothers,
right?
But like I had it on, like he sat through. I think it was the last 2 episodes, but like 9 and 10, right? And like to watch those stories, right? In your foxhole in the woods, and your feet, and you're like, I mean, I might have been on a mountain and it was hot.
Right.
But I mean, I can't even imagine, right? Like that type of stuff. And you watch that, but that even, right, we talk about that on Band of Brothers, right? Having a lottery to go home, to not even go home, and then to say, hey, by the way, you're gonna go over to the Pacific. Literally, like, hey, I'm gonna be sitting in Afghanistan. I can't come home. Like, that's what I was telling him. Imagine if I would have called you and said, I can't come home, and now I got to go to Iraq. Like, have to. Like, you can't come home, right? Mm-hmm. I was like, yeah, like a different time. And just to see that, and well, that's a movie, I get it. But I was always impressed by, Dick Winters. And I didn't even realize when he passed away. I think I had to Google, it was like 2011 or 2010. Yeah. And I was like, oh my God, like I knew what it was made, but I didn't know if he maybe was still alive or not. And but to show like that person's kind of character, like who was a real person, right? How Band of Brothers, again, made of a movie, but like, Dick Winters being a real guy, right? And for it to be made that, and for my kids to watch it, especially my 12-year-old, right? You're like, yeah, like there's so much more. We watched Warfare too.
Mm-hmm.
They sat through some of that, which, I think it was good, but, too, it's again, a little bit of movie stuff, but just to see things and hear things, like, I don't know, like I'm not forcing them, but like, I love when I have it on and they don't get up and leave.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And they'll sit and watch it. Yeah.
Yeah. It's weird too, because, so many people in this country do not have a direct connection to people who served. Obviously your children do.
Yeah.
But that's the thing. I think that the GWAT generation, I think that's what I don't know. I'm kind of trying this on for size. I think that's part of what we're doing is trying to reconnect the civilian and the citizen to the military, bridging that divide through all of these different avenues, right? Like you've got Dead Reckoning Collective, who does that through poetry and through fiction and through nonfiction, through writing, through literature. You've got BRCC who does it through the best coffee,
Video, yeah.
The best coffee
Yeah.
in the world, right? Like
Yeah.
I've plenty of civilian friends are like, hey man, I heard about this BRCC thing because you drink it and you had some guys on and like whatever. I tried it. It's like it's now the coffee that I get because like I don't necessarily even care
Yep.
that it's a veteran thing. I just got it and tried it because you guys talked about it and it's the best coffee and I love it. You've got people who do T-shirts, all these different things. Like we are trying to bridge the military civilian divide because we understand probably more than most, even those previous generations, to the point that you're making with the conditions that they went and fought in were just objectively more difficult than the conditions that we went to fight in, not dismissing the conditions that we were in and
Sure,
not
yeah.
putting those up on a pedestal, but like it was different. But we are the ones who are bridging this divide and saying like, hey, our op tempo, our deployment tempo, our training tempo was insane. For 20 plus years,
Yep.
we've been going nonstop. Whereas they did a couple of tours, fought the war, won the war, in Vietnam's case, a little bit longer and didn't necessarily win. But then they came home and then they were just kind of done. The GWAT generation, like it's just been our life. And the average civilian, the average citizen watches it on the news and then just forgets that it's an ongoing conflict, an ongoing war. And then 3 times a year through these various holidays, remember like, oh yeah, that's right, we support the military. Whereas we've been like, no man, like our friends are gone, our friends are like
Yep.
deployed, or our friends are dead, or this has been like an ongoing thing. So the GWAT generation very much to me feels like we're trying to again connect all those generations and understand the giants whose shoulders we're standing on, but then also reminding the American people that like, hey, like this is a thing in this particular generation, it's different for us.
It really is. And it's, and I would say like, so just even talk about therapy, right? So when I talk about draw, aim, heal, and archery is therapy, it's like, why? You're like, like, what do you have problems with? And again, it's not about me, but when you, like what you were saying too, is about telling those stories. Like the average person doesn't realize like, even like how it affects your brain to be able to walk on a dirt road with an Army kid, so be an Air Force, right? I'm walking as the JTAC, and then he has a minesweeper, and you're like, every step I might be blown up. And I have, and I'm sure you like plenty of friends who are amputees where it's stuff like that happen. And to live that every day, to walk a patrol, and there's a minesweeper in front of you, and you're like, and then like, right, just to be able to turn it back. Some dudes, some gals can. But that's why, again, when you look like a band of brothers, right? Like there's the shell shock and PTS now and stuff. It's just like how it affects. And so that's where, like for me, it's archery therapy, because for me, I know when I'm in the woods and I'm with friends and I'm like, right, I'm hot and I'm even tired from shooting. I'm happy. And like, here's another story. So last year we're at Oklahoma TAC again, and it starts to rain. Sitka has a course, and it's on an island out there. It starts to rain and it's windy. Bethany doesn't have like her jacket, so I give her my rain jacket, and I'm in a t-shirt. It's 50 degrees or 55 degrees, so it's chilly, but it's raining, right? And she's like, "Are you okay?" I mean, and I was red and I was cold, and I was like, "I am fine." Those moments right there, like, not that she's not normal, but like she is normal. I say she's normal Air Force, right? So she's a personnel specialist. People would be like, no, like just shut down, like stop, like let's just walk through the course, not keep doing it. And I'm like, no, I'm right now at one of the happiest points in my life. And so that happiness though, and so but that's explaining though, someone, because you have to explain, well, why, like what do you need to be happy about? Like why aren't you happy, or what in your life is there? And you're just like, man, okay, I mean, where do I start? Like, I mean, for me personally, Dan Horgan, I could say I could go cop stories. So let's not even go where law enforcement can go, but like, just war. I didn't go to Iraq, I went to Afghanistan, but like, again, like those things like can affect you. Some people it doesn't affect, some people it does. And it's just like, that was part of your job. Yeah, I get it. And it's not entitlement, because I think you've had some guests on, and I'm definitely never ever talk about any kind of entitlement, right? I'm not looking for my 10% discount because of those things, but it is my butt is like just creating that community and these things to do better for us. Because again, when I look at a suicide epidemic, like if I can, I guess, I mean, it's cliche, but right, if you can help one person, like it's worth it, right? So if I've dumped
100%.
$10,000 into t-shirts, but one guy or one girl says, hey, like whatever I heard or your stuff, and I got in archery and I decided not to kill myself, great. Like that's exactly what I want, because it's just too much. I've never been there, right? So I know we talk about suicide, and not to go too deep, but like I've never been there. I have seen it and I understand it, and I can make jokes of like, I guess I would if I were a pedophile, right? And got caught in jail. And I've been in some dark places, even myself. I guess for me, that hasn't. But that's where I go into, not everyone has the same experiences. Not everyone has the same, even, coping skills. Not everyone has the same support and community. And with over 45,000 veteran nonprofits, you still have people who don't know there are resources there. And while this isn't a nonprofit, right? Like, just like you, like we know enough nonprofits where, as the community, if you're in it, like we can get you, the help that you need.
Yeah, and that's I mean, at the end of the day, right? To bring it full circle, like community is what heals. Like the ability to converse with other individuals who have a similar collective experience, but then also have specific individual experiences within that collective. Like that's where the value is. When Cameron and I were on the road with Team RWB for the Old Glory Ultra Relay, all of us deployed, all of us served in myriad capacities, doing a bunch of different things. You had, operators out there, you had infantry grunts out there, you had surface warfare officers out there, you had personnel specialists, healthcare specialists out there. We had a rescue swimmer out there. We had all kinds of different people from different branches, different MOSs, different experiences. However, the one thing we shared was a common language, a common framework, right? And then we could dive in and be like, that's where it's fun. It's like, oh, in the Air Force, it was like this, or in the Army, it was like this, or in the Navy, it was like this. Oh, do you guys have this term? Oh, yeah, we have that term, but this means this, and then the next thing you know, you're just talking about stuff and you're kind of shooting the shit. And, I'm getting made fun of for being in the Air Force and, being on the flight line, and then like, I'm making fun of these, operators for being knuckle draggers. Right. But then the next thing you know, we're having a deep conversation. And just because we had different experiences in the GWAT, like what we do share brings us together. And because we have different experiences, we're able to have different perspectives, and those different perspectives open things up in each other's minds and in each other's hearts. And yes, it was kind of couched in this nonprofit event, but it wasn't like nonprofit services. It was humans communicating and connecting with each other about what was shared and what was different. And that was healing.
No, yeah. And it is. And that's the beauty of, I would, to take your circle, right? Is that like a sergeant major thing? I wasn't a sergeant major, but like, I'm going to piggyback, right? Piggyback. No, is shooting some archery, right? Again, Oklahoma is a fantastic one that they have up there. But the guy in front of me was active duty. What was he? He was an active duty drill instructor, right? I didn't know it. I mean, it was a husband and wife. They were just together, and they're like, "Hey, you could join in." And I was like, I go, nah. I just want to. I'm shooting. I was shooting by myself that day, so I was like, I'm going to shoot, but we'll catch up. Like you leapfrog and you catch. It's like golf. We'll get to the next hole together, and we can wrap. But he was active duty Army, right, and stuff. And you're just sitting there, and you didn't know him beforehand, right, and connected on Instagram and stuff, and but to be able to sit there and just talk, and then just even ask, like, hey man, like what's it like a drill instructor, like oof, like. And then make jokes like to her, like, "Hey, he seems normal, right? He doesn't seem like a complete jerk, right?" And her to laugh as a wife, and so like, but those things again, because that Total Archery Challenge isn't a veteran event, and so like to randomly run into a veteran in the middle of the woods when you're shooting, right, and then to have these conversations is just awesome. And then the group behind me weren't veterans, but they overhear, right, because you start getting close to each other.
Yeah.
And they're like, "Oh, you were Air Force, you were Army," and then like they join in the conversations as you're going.
Yeah.
And then that's the point. Like we talk about, like the community, while it might be niche, for me, like for veterans in archery, it goes bigger that like when I'm marketing my personas, right? It's patriots, and then there's supporters of the military, and things like,
Well,
yeah, yeah,
and then then it's just curious individuals who want to know more about each other. And like I was talking to my sister-in-law about this at dinner the other night. We had my wife's sisters over for dinner, and I made, KC Cattle Company steak salads, right? And we're sitting there down there at dinner, and she was talking about this documentary, and she knows that obviously my wife and I are documentary filmmakers, right? That's what we do for a living. And she's like, hey, I know you guys probably aren't interested in this subject matter. She's like, this is one of my favorite people, and they made a documentary about it. And she's like, I actually don't think the documentary is very good, but I'm interested in the subject of the documentary, but I don't know enough about the skill set. She's like, will you watch the documentary so that we can talk about it? Because I want to know if it's any good and why I don't like it. And then I looked at her and I'm like, those are my favorite documentaries to watch, are the ones that I don't know anything about the subject, or even if I don't like necessarily the subject matter or the genre or the whatever, like those are the ones that interest me the most, because I can get curious about another human being, their experience, their perspective. And then next thing you know, we're having this super cool conversation, about some chick lit podcast that she listens to, because that's what this documentary was about. And it's like, no, be curious and humble enough to wonder about somebody else's experience. Don't be the person who like tries to compare or leads with like, oh, you did that. Very similar to this other thing I did. No, just be curious, be open, ask some questions, and like engage in the conversational nature of community.
Yeah, no, there's one that I'll mention too, Kara, if you don't mind, is just because I actually had never been involved with it or anything, but it's a big topic. So they haven't done a documentary. So here's something.
Yeah.
So it's called Shield of Sisters.
Okay.
They, again, community help heal, but it's military sexual trauma.
Mm-hmm.
I never experienced that. So again, we can talk about suicide. I've experienced that in my, I have never really, now I know people, right, a little bit,
sure.
But I don't know their full stories.
Yeah.
Because that is one of those topics, right? I mean, I know it's hard, right? No one wants to necessarily talk about those things, but again, it's something, right? As this airs or when this airs, we just had the sailor killed, right, in Norfolk. Now we don't know, right? I know there's two people of interest, right? A little bit about the story. There's two people of interest that are in confinement, right? So we don't know any facts yet. I mean, we know she's deceased. And you can make inferences. But anyway, so to go in that is that something, right? Military sexual trauma isn't something, but telling those stories though is very key. And then that's why this nonprofit exists, Shield of Sisters, is to educate and get awareness and then to help, right? If you need help. So yeah, like anyway, I go off the rails.
Yeah, awareness drives community drives help. Like that's the funnel, and that's the way that it should be. All right, I want to wrap things up here, Dan. Where can folks find you? Where can folks find the t-shirts? Where can folks find the brand?
Yep, old guy. www.arrowandhonorco.com is the website, right? So even if you probably type in just Arrow and Honor, I bet it comes up.
Cool.
Because the only other thing I think on the internet, again, doing my due diligence, was there's the Honor Arrow, which is the company that actually makes like an arrow in honor of something.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool. Probably need to reach out to them. But anyway, so arrowandhonorco.com. Same thing on Instagram. So Instagram actually is arrowandhonor.co. Or even me, you can look up me. I'm Dan _ Horgan _ Facebook, Arrow and Honor Co. Like I think those are the three platforms I'm using for now, just because they're the ones that I'm familiar with, right? That I've played with. LinkedIn's actually huge. Which, hey, side note, people on Instagram will crush and make fun of everyone on LinkedIn, and I had to hold my tongue the other day because I won't drop a name, but someone that I know, Army Ranger guy, posted. He's like, if you're on LinkedIn for more than 30 seconds, you're whatever, right?
Yeah.
And I wanted to type back to him, bro, if you're on Instagram for more than 30 seconds, you're whatever. I was like, but you don't see people on LinkedIn making fun of the people on Instagram, right? But the people on Instagram want to make fun of the people on LinkedIn. Yep. Give it a chance. It's not as, and I know you can get on LinkedIn too. It's not as bad as everyone makes it seem out to be.
No.
Like if you're on Instagram, you can get on LinkedIn.
Yeah, you're prolific on LinkedIn, and haters gonna hate. So just let them do their.
Excuse me. Again, it's just that though. Like, don't be on one platform and think that platform is like solid gold and the Holy Bible. You're like, it's Instagram, and you're trying to say that LinkedIn's whatever. You're like, come on now.
Yeah. Come on. Yeah. I probably should have asked you about this before. I asked you about it offline. I don't know if we can get a code for the listeners to go on. We'll drive traffic to buy some t-shirts, but
sure.
We'll you and I can chat about that offline. I'll drop it into the show notes and all the posts and all that stuff.
Perfect.
Help drive some sales for you.
Yeah.
And yeah, all right, Dan, as you know, I end each episode of the podcast with an open-ended question. What's on your heart and your mind for our community right now? Could be a piece of advice, something you want to get off your chest, or something you want to reiterate that we've talked about today. But Dan, what's on your heart? What's on your mind?
Yeah. Mutual friend, Cameron Cushman. Like I want to, when I say I want to give him a shout out, what's on my heart and mind is just something that Cam pushes, and then something you're pushing with like having a podcast. It's storytelling. Like every veteran, as we talk about a community, like tell your stories. Personally, so real quick, I wrote one the other week. I was coming home from Chicago. I call it warrior poetry. Like I wrote some thoughts down. Yeah, I used Chat GPT to organize and edit, but they're all my words, just how it went. But it's just that though, like you have to, as a veteran, like I was struggling, and just in that moment, I wouldn't say in life I'm struggling, but in that moment I was just struggling. Like a wave hit me. So that's what's on my heart is just people need to tell their stories, and that could be, it doesn't have to be a war story. It can be like, yeah, man, like, I don't know. I was pushing papers and I just was like, this is where I wanted to be and what I was doing. I just think we need to tell stories more. So people don't forget, right? Or people don't, what's the saying? Like you're doomed to repeat history.
Yep.
Or something, right? Like, so like, I don't ever want to see that. And so I think stories, we need to tell more stories.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. We need to tell stories to each other, right? Like Cameron and I just spent 2.5 weeks on the road, like embedded with these guys, and we were all talking to each other. But then, we were bunking together in these hotel rooms across the country. And that's what we were doing is we were talking to each other and, telling stories to each other. And yeah, some of them had to do with service, but others had to do with our families and our kids and our wives and our extended families and all these different things that were going on. It's like, that's how conversation happens. That's how community is built, by telling stories to each other. Yes, we have these things and we have this thing, and, you're prolific on social media. Cameron is, I am, all these other people in the community are. It's like, yeah, get the stories out there publicly, but for God's sake, get them out there privately. Talk to each other, tell each other a story, sit down, have a bourbon, have a cigar, have a cup of coffee, like just sit down and talk and tell stories to each other and listen to each other's stories.
No, 100%. That's really, again, that's what's on my heart. And I would tell you just again, why create what I created, because of that. Stories, connecting.
Yeah, that's it. I love it, brother. I always appreciate chatting to you. Glad to have you on. Glad to have you back on, and can't wait to have you back on again.
Thanks, dude. Appreciate it.